"Oh, what a botheration," puffed Heathsby, the miller, carrying his sack of grain across the village green. With every tug of his tired bones, he felt acutely conscious of his load. Crossing the old bridge, he had to lug the grain behind him like a human body. Passing the mill pond, the sack weighed down his back so badly that he almost toppled in. Heathsby's route home took him past the alehouse, which he noticed through its grimy windows looked to be quite busy. So much for all his customers saying they couldn't afford to pay him. Folk have always got brass for booze, he reflected, pushing past. It had been a long while since he had called in for a drink himself. He never seemed to have the time or money, and he felt a mixture of disapproval and envy towards those within, casually enjoying an evening's drinking, while he, an overworked and underpaid miller, was weighed down by his troubles. An elderly drunk stumbled out of the inn, all but collapsing on the gravelly ground. "Hey up, mate," he simpered. "I say, hey up, lend us a few coins, would there?" "I'll do no such thing, you dirty article," and the miller swiped him with the side of his hand. "Look at the state of you, slumped outside a pub, dead drunk at this hour. You want to get yourself home, sleep it off, and go and get yourself a job, instead of sidling round on the streets. It's disgusting." Inwardly despairing at the declining standards of modern society, a beleaguered Heathsby huffed and puffed his way home, on a route which seemed to be growing more and more uphill by the day. As he finally stumbled into his cramped hut of a home, Heathsby was panting, and dropped his sack in a heap at his feet. He ached in every limb. Tasks which he might, just this time last year, have polished off in a trice, now knocked the stuffing out of him. Catching sight of himself in the cracked mirror in his hallway, he grimaced at the paunchy figure of a man bulging back at him, tunic half hanging off, shoes caked in mud, a picture of slovenly indigence. "I'm getting old," the miller told himself defeatedly. What a wretched lot was the life of a provincial miller, reflected Heathsby as he struggled to remove his shoes, opening the larder to see its shelves were bare. He had forgotten that this morning funds had been too low to permit even the most rudimentary purchases from the village store, where his credit was exhausted. "Porridge again, then," he told himself resignedly, before flopping onto his hard wooden bench and yawning long and hard. Business was getting tougher. Fewer and fewer of his customers ever seemed to have the ready funds to pay him, and the baker, whose shop had for many years been Heathsby's principal source of trade, seemed of late to open only irregularly. "It's all going to pot," he grieved, sucking long on his tobacco cigarette, as the evening outside began to darken, "and I can't see things getting better any time soon." At the back of his mind, Heathsby knew he ought to be trying to think of ways of pursuing his debtors, if only to salvage a few pence with which to appease his own impatient creditors. But soon, worries crowding his brain until he felt like it would burst, he fell into a muggy sleep, broken and unhappy. The following morning, Heathsby rose early, his spirits revivified by a sense of optimism. Marching from his door, he was determined to extract what he was due, if even from a single one of the men who owed him money. "I'll try old Budgeworth first. He owes me more than anyone, and besides, there isn't much use of a miller without a baker. I'll soon have the bugger coughing up." Budsworth's bakery was a dilapidated building, its thatched roof resembling a head of shaggy hair, its windows not quite symmetrical, and its chimney seemingly stuck almost on the side of the wall, puffing out gusts of sooty smoke like the pipe of some bronchial tramp. Above the door hung a lopsided sign proclaiming Humphrey Budsworth, baker. With a deep breath, Heathsby pushed through the entrance and into the shoddy shop. The floor was a mat of breadcrumbs and sawdust. Rolling pins and baking trays were piled up here, there, and everywhere. Behind the counter, whose wooden edges had been prolifically gnawed by rodents, sat a sleepy-looking man in a baker's hat, his baggy belly seeming to spill out of his smock like a bundle of jelly as he chewed on a crust of bread. He looked surprised to see an arrival on his premises, and regarded Heathsby with an irritated glare. "Good morning, Mr. Budsworth, and how are you this fine? Oh, you what?" yawned the sheepish baker, rubbing his eyes and wiping the crumbs from his mouth. I were just about to shut up shop. It's been a long day. But it's only just gone 9 o'clock in the morning, Budsworth, and I've come to see about your debts." He quickly corrected himself. "Your payments for the grain I delivered last week. And the week before. And the week before. Oh, aye, that." Budsworth's face creased into a devious grin. "I'll see you reet, Heathsby. I'll see you reet." "I shall be much obliged to you, Mr. Budsworth. But when?" All right, no need to get stroppy." And Budsworth tried to rise, but all but wobbled over as he did so, bringing his visitor hobbling over to assist. "Mr. Budsworth, are you all right?" "I'm all right," cried the baker, who dusted himself down and recollected himself. "I do apologise, Heathsby. I'm all right." Heathsby noticed that his host looked unsteady even as he sat back down, and that he was fingering beneath his counter as if trying to locate something secreted there. "I sincerely hope so, Mr. Budsworth. Now about that money—" Yes, no need to go on," wheezed Budsworth, turning shiftily away. "Mr. Budsworth, there's every need. What are you doing? Mr. Budsworth, is that a bottle in your—" "Oh, clear off, you!" spat the shopkeeper, banging down the bottle from which he had just imbibed a quantity of liquid. "Can't you see I've a shop to run? I'm a busy bloke. I've no time for your pestering." "Busy drinking, Mr. Budsworth, but looks of things. Is that what you've been doing? Is that why you can't pay me what you owe? Because you've splashed all your cash on drink, eh? Oh, go and boil your head, Heathsby. What's that bottle? It's true, ain't it? You've been boozing, Budsworth. I told you once," cried the baker, bringing a fist down on the counter. "I'll not tell you again. Now sling your oak." "I'm going," affirmed his disgruntled guest. "I shouldn't want to hang around in a den of drunken iniquity. Only mind what I say, Budsworth. I want my brass, and one way or t'other I'll be getting it. Don't think I'll not." "Bugger off," the chubby drunkard slurred, half laughing, half in anger. His cackling laughter could be heard as Heathsby slammed the door and set off stamping down the cobbled lane.